Good evening, everybody. I don't know why my camera is down here. Let me fix that. There we go. Alrighty. So, Carolina did good in that last one. That game went about as well as I expected it to, honestly, considering that I knew the Flyers were going to make a lot of adjustments. It did spark them. But just to put things in perspective, Philadelphia did score 2 goals, but they only did them. They got them both in a 41-second window, I believe it was. I've got it on my notes here. 39-second window, excuse me. Um, Honestly, that was a very what I like to call a blue collar game from the Hurricanes, a bend but don't break type of mentality from them. And if you're going to win in the playoffs, or if you're going to win at all, but especially in the playoffs, you've got to have that. So I'm going to get to some of the comments and all that type of stuff here. Alrighty. So Carolina managed to win this one in overtime. Stop me if you've heard this before. Carolina and Philadelphia went to overtime by a score of 3-2. Expected goals total were 4.91 to 3.68 for favoring Carolina. One thing we're going to talk about on the next slide, and we're going to talk about it in general a whole lot, is how much of a factor the goaltending has been for both these teams, and it's been good for both of them. Freddie's been a little bit better, but I mean marginally better. So 5-on-5 goals, Carolina had 2, Philadelphia had 1. Expected goals 5-on-5, relatively close, 2.92 to 2.68, even though there weren't a ton of minutes played 5-on-5 in this game as a whole. I've got my laptop here so I can go look at that type of stuff here once we do the basic game summary. Penalty minutes, Carolina had 16, Philadelphia had 14. Some of that canceled out. Ultimately, Carolina had 6 power plays, Philadelphia had 7. Both teams had 1 power play goal, which that's surprising to me considering how many opportunities were given to both teams. No shorthanded goals to speak of. Carolina had 81 shot attempts, and Philadelphia had 54. Carolina blocked. That's supposed to say 18, forgive me. 18 shots blocked to Philadelphia's 15. Shots on goal, Carolina had 42 to 36. So, volume-wise, you had a little bit higher of a gap here with shots in this game. As far as I see y'all over there in the comments having your fun. As far as volume, Carolina had a lot more of a gap. As far as shots on net and generating expected goals and chance quality and everything like that, pretty close. So, for example, for the last game, the totals that I have here, let's see, 81 to 67, 63 to 53 for Corsi and Fenwick, respectively. High danger chance for 19 to 14, so not too much of a gap there. And of course, goals for ended up being a 3-1 difference. That's all, or I'm sorry, a 2-1 difference, and that's all at 5-on-5. So Philadelphia, I knew they were going to make some changes. They made some pretty big ones. They moved Trevor Zegras over to the wing. Emil Andre came in for Noel Juleson, and Grundstrom came in for Hathaway. And that was what really, really sparked Philadelphia. The good news about that is, I think it's safe to say the Flyers threw their best punch, and Carolina withstood it. They threw their best punch that they can on the road. Game 3, going to be a different story. If they go into Game 3 with these changes and have the additional advantage of last change, then Philadelphia can and more than likely will take advantage of that tomorrow night. Game 3s are incredibly hard to win. Like I said, they're Game 1, Part 2. I'm not expecting Carolina to win tomorrow night. But if they could, that would be... That... I don't have a coffee cup. That would be great. If you know that movie, you have lived life. So, they did make those adjustments. The Canes had a bit of a rough start because of it. Philadelphia was putting a lot of pressure on Carolina in their own zone. It was almost characteristic of how Carolina is able to do it. Sean Walker had a delay of game puck over glass penalty at 3:25 into the first period. That would kind of set the first period looking kind of like a disaster in motion. Flyers scored twice in 39 seconds. Drysdale scored unassisted on the power play, followed by Sean Couturier from Grundstrom, which, there you've already had one change be a tangible factor right there, because Garnett Hathaway's not going to score in that situation. So they scored twice in 39 seconds. Shortly after that, in that period, Cam York was called for holding on Sebastian Aho. Nikolai Ehlers, finally, Carolina gets a power play goal of their own, assisted by Keandre Miller and Jackson Blake at 10:21. Ultimately, Seth Jarvis would be the one who tied it in the third. There's a lot to talk about with the back and forth in that game. Now, what I want to look at here, and like I said, this is cool. You can't really see it on the camera, but I've got my laptop right here so I can look at this right here. Now, I want to talk particularly about the second period, and then we're going to talk a lot about overtime. So in the second period, let me see. So shot attempts in the second period, actually, even though it didn't feel like it at times, favored Carolina, 31-14. High danger chances for in the second period, 12-2. Expected goals for, 2.27 to 0.75. That's in all situations. Now I want to go look at 5-on-5, and this is where it's a little bit less of a gap. 13-8 for shot attempts total. 8-7 for shots on goal. Scoring chances for, Carolina generated 8 and had 1 against. And all 5 of the high danger chances in the second period belonged to Carolina. Those of you who are in the group chat, whether it's my one with my good friends Griff, Sam, and AB, or the one that we have on X, you can verify this. And I said it the entire game. I'm like, the Canes are fine, the Canes are fine, the Canes are fine. This is literally no worse of a situation than Game 5 against New Jersey, where they were fighting for their lives, or Game 2 against the Islanders the previous season, where they knew what would happen, the Islanders, should that series have gone back to Long Island 2-0. And they barely extended that series in Game 4. So, team does not want to go back to its own barn down 2-0. It's demoralizing. But there was I was never worried at all in this game. There were some sequences where Carolina didn't play well. There were some shifts where I'm kind of like, what are you doing? Having multiple delay of game puck over glass penalties and too many men penalties, not good, poorly executed, bad fundamentals. You're going to have games like that. I'd rather them have it now than in the conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals, should they get there. So this is really, there were some poorly executed moments that could have cost them. But again, bend, don't break. They did a hell of a lot of bending in this game, but they did not break. So that's the biggest thing I want to talk about with that. Now, when you get to the third period, looking at 5-on-5, lower volume of events and everything like that. But for perspective, how many penalties were called in regulation? Out of the entirety of the first period, 12:27 was played at 5-on-5. The entirety of the second period, there were 9 minutes 11 seconds played at 5-on-5. The third period was the closest thing that we got to them swallowing the whistles. There were 14 minutes total played at 5-on-5, and that's not accounting for however much time there was 4-on-4. There were a couple of overlapping sequences with penalties. And then in the overtime period, 16:54 was played at 5-on-5, and that's when the officials were kind of starting to let stuff go, maybe to see if, you could get the game over with. Philadelphia really, really put up a fight. For the first time at 5-on-5 that entire game, and I would assume the entire series, Philadelphia had a higher amount of shot attempts. They had 19, Carolina had 16. They had expected goals at 5-on-5 actually still favored Carolina 1.46 to 1.18. And if you account for all situations, considering Philadelphia was favored a little bit in the I don't even want to call favored. It's just like they couldn't set a standard in that game. Out of the 18 minutes and 54 seconds that were played in the entirety of that period, Carolina had 16 shot attempts. Philadelphia had 22. Expected goals, 1.46 for Carolina to 1.3 for Philadelphia, so relatively close. You're talking about less than a quarter of an expected goal difference there. High danger chances were split evenly, 7-7 in all situations. Carolina withstood Philadelphia's best attempt to even that series, which was the first 13 to 14 minutes, I would say, of the overtime period. And times where they put up really good fights in the second period during the long change, trying to utilize their speed and their ability to fly the zone correctly. Or fly the zone quickly and, generate plays off of that. So, excellent effort overall in this game. Now, to further break things down, I want to talk about the goaltending because this is a relatively close matchup. Even though, Freddie is getting it where it counts in the win column. But looking at this total, these are the numbers from last night. Goals against average, or I'm sorry, looking at expected goals against 3.68 to 2.92. Goal saved above expected. Vladar was excellent last night. He was barely below saving above expected, like barely. Patrick Anderson made 34 saves on 36 shots, and Dan Vladar made 24 on 26. Save percentage 9.44 to 9.23. And then when you break down the save percentage, in a fraction manner here, like I have, Freddie Anderson gave up one high danger goal and one medium danger goal. 11 for 12 on high danger, 4 for 5 on medium danger, 10 for 10 on low danger. 13 for 13 for Dan Vladar, 3 for 4 for medium danger percentage on him, and then high danger, 7 for 8. So these numbers are pretty close. I think that should be 3 to 5 there on the medium danger one. Please forgive me. So ultimately here, that was Philadelphia's best punch that they can throw on the road. The only other things that I think that they would really consider, they're not going to make a goaltending change because Dan Vladar is not the problem. He has played very well. It is actually impressive that Carolina has put as many past him as they have, because in years past, a performance like the one Dan Vladar is having right now would be enough to have this series even, if not worse. But Carolina does have some things that they got to clean up. Now, one other thing I'm going to go here to, and Griff is really going to like this other thing I've got pulled up here. These are the line statistics from last night. You see here. That's individual players. I'm looking for the lines. The heat map at 5-on-5 is significantly more even in this game as well. I might screen clip that and pull it up here in a minute. All right. So the Hurricanes had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different line combinations last night. Of course, as you know, they juggled the lines a little bit in the third period, and it helped. I mean, just look at Seth Jarvis's goal. So the one line that stayed together and stayed consistent, as you might guess, Taylor Hall, Logan Stankoven, Jackson Blake. 56.52 Corsi for percentage. Even on Fenwick, 10-4, 10 against. Shots for, they were also even, 7-7. But then in the expected goals column at 5-on-5, 1.06 to 0.84 for 55-77. Now, those may not sound like amazing numbers, but here's why it's impressive. Every line combination last night played 6 minutes and 39 seconds or less. The Stankoven line in its current configuration played 12:31, and they had some really tough matchups. If the Couturier line can go out there and shut down the Aho line, the Stankoven, Blake, and Hall line are going to pick up the slack offensively, as they have done all through the playoffs thus far. Very good stuff going on there. So, everything that happened last night, there's a lot of people, I won't even say a lot, there's a few people who are dooming because of how close that game was. Rod said it best back in 22-23, which, as I've stated on many occasions, I thought that team had what it took to win the cup. Injuries even considered, I thought that team would win. I really did. It's the playoffs. You're not going to have easy games. If you magically inserted the Chicago Blackhawks or the St. Louis Blues or any other team that had a rough season, if you just magically put them in Philadelphia's spot or Ottawa's spot in the last round, there would still be difficult games to win. There would still be games that were difficult to win at home. So I don't know what other changes that Tocchet has in mind. I know that Noah Cates is out for the series. Owen Tippett may be back. If he's back, he's going to be he is a difference maker. He's a big factor for them. Between possibly getting Tippett back and maybe if Tocchet does some things with the lines, i.e. moving Michkov up, even though I don't think that that's on his mind, Game 3 tomorrow is going to be very, very hard for Carolina to win. By no means is it impossible, but winning Game 3s are they're incredibly hard. That's the hardest game in a series, if you ask me, other than a Game 7. So we will see what happens. I will be doing Landfall Hour tomorrow around 6:30 or so. And then On Saturday, we're going to plan some sort of big stream of some sort that we're going to do in the early afternoon because I should be home in time to do that. Then we will have regular landfall hour, and we may do damage report on the same night because I won't have to be up early on Sunday morning. All I'm going to do on Sunday is I'm going to grab my dog, and we're going to drive to Florence, and we're going to go to Buc-ee's and get some treats for humans and dogs both, and go run around and go to a couple of dog parks up that way. We're going to enjoy the weather because it's supposed to be really, really nice on Sunday. So let's get to some comments. Damon says, what's good? What's good, buddy? Tyler, what's up? Great to see a Jarvis goal. That's huge for him, especially if he's hurt. Maybe he can get that top line a jump start. Okay, so I'm happy to see that too, but there is one thing that I want to address in regards to Jarvis, and I'm standing by my opinion on this. Your top power play unit needs to have 5 capable players, and part of being capable is having 5 lethal shooters. Yeah, that one shot that Jarvis had that he scored on, yeah, that was a laser. Still, I'm not opposed to the idea of pulling Jarvis off the power play. Anything that requires 2 hands is kind of difficult for Seth Jarvis right now. And that's not me trying to, that's not me slighting Jarvis. That's not me complaining about Jarvis. Everyone knows that his right shoulder is foolhardy. My dad just had the surgery that I assume that Seth Jarvis will be having over the summer, or at least a very similar procedure. And my dad's shoulder has been messed up since before I was born, for context. Jarvis, on the other hand, will have the best doctors, and it will basically be his purpose and job in life will be to rehab that shoulder over the course of time. He probably will not start the season in the event that he elects to do that. If he does so, if he does have the surgery, then that's going to be a chance for Bradley Nadeau to get an extended look. Jacob Slavin, if he needs to have anything done, I think that he should get it done. If Jordan Martinook needs to have anything done, I think he should get it done, even though Martinook has played much, much better the last few months. But he's held together with duct tape more than likely. He's a tough customer. He's a gamer. But I would be totally okay with shutting all 3 of those guys down and getting an extended look, regardless of how this season ends. I would be totally okay with shutting all those guys down and getting an extended look at some of the players that the Hurricanes have in the minors. And you'll have 3 roster spots to do it with. That gives Nikishin a chance to grow as well because he'll be able to take on some more minutes next year in Slavin's absence. There's a lot of different things you can do there. Same with Miller. Walker is very utilitarian. So I would say that if you're going to do those types of things, the window to execute that is coming up. That being said, you need 5 lethal shooters on a power play, especially your top unit. And Jarvis is not shooting in opportunities that he normally would. And when he is shooting, the velocity is a little bit lower. The exception being the one he scored on, which kind of is, helping me make my point. He's not playing at full strength with 2 hands. You need him to make a defensive play. You need him to block a shot. You need him to pass a puck. He's fine there. But that shoulder is messing with his ability to shoot the puck. And we've all seen Jarvis shoot. We know how good he is at it. The only person on the team right now better at shooting a puck than Jarvis, is at least among the forwards, is Logan Stankoven. And the only person in the organization who is probably better than either one of those guys is Bradley Nadeau. So that's why I think that it might not hurt to lower his minutes a little bit, especially when you have other options. And I'm not saying put Jarvis on the second unit. I'm saying take Jarvis off of it entirely. He's not really helping on it right now because he's losing board battles and everything like that. And I'd rather, if he's got to play through that, I'd rather him do that at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. And that's not to say that maybe he can't go back on it later, but I'm personally worried and under the impression that the shoulder hit critical mass at a very inopportune time. So Will Park says, just like Game 2 versus Ottawa, could be easily leaving to play on the road 1-1. Yeah, but again, they bent, but they didn't break, and that's all you can ask for of them. Very proud of how that team went last night. Matthew Griffith says, Logan Smythe-Coven. Yeah, but he's not a 2C yet. Taylor Hall might have a say so in that. And Frederick Anderson might have one too. I mean, his numbers throughout the entirety of the playoffs are absolutely ridiculous. Like when you actually break down high, medium, and low and goal saved above expected, he's excellent right now. Bobby, what's up, buddy? Yep, could be tied, but thanks to Hallelujah. I agree. Taylor, Hallelujah. That power play, both teams. Yeah, Carolina. If Carolina could get the power play firing on all cylinders, they'll be fine. Matthew Griff says, Getting tired of all these whistles in the playoffs, let them play. I agree. The amount of penalties that were called the other night, and the standard shifted, it seemed, many times of what was and wasn't a penalty. Because at one point, everything was a penalty, and then you'd have 5 minutes where nothing was a penalty. They'd throw the whistles out, or hell, not even 5 minutes, more like 2, and then they decided to call every little ticky-tack thing again. And it's just bad. The officiating was way too involved last night. The officiating was like someone telling their kid, "Hey, get a job and move out of the house," and then standing in front of the door when they go to leave, telling them how they're never going to amount to anything. That's how bad it was. That was awful. And I'm not saying towards Carolina or towards Philadelphia. The officiating in general sucked. It was just like, let them play. I understand you have to have some game management element there to keep stuff from getting out of hand. But TJ Luxmore was also patting himself on the back the other night. You could see it on his face that he was like, "Oh, look at me. I took control of the game. Ha ha ha." No, no, that got out of hand because you're bad at your job. Bobby says, "No quit, no panic in this team." I agree. That's exactly how you go about winning a game like that. Griff says, "Can confirm." 3-1 Buffalo. I mean, Montreal and Buffalo, it's like Hitler versus Stalin to me. At the end of the day, nobody really wins. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. The matchup that I do not want is Montreal, but I cannot, in good faith, conscious, and without vomiting everywhere, say that I want Buffalo to win a playoff series. So if they could just if Montreal could win and be really tired and demoralized after 7 games with 18 overtime periods, I'll take that deal. Not you says I got the Sabres in 6. I Montreal in 7, but I think Montreal is going to get that one. I really do. Run back 06. Jarvis jumping in the glass before the end of the season probably didn't help. I don't think anything like that would have done it. If it's anything like what my dad's injury was, it's not impact so much that does it as it is weird rotational things happening that shouldn't happen, which is what did my knee in for a long time. It wasn't anything impact related. I at some point or another, it just my patella just kept going the wrong way, and at some point I toe picked or I hit a rut or something. That just, if it was even hockey that did it the rest of the way at all, it could have been from running or walking or sitting too much. I'll never know. But I'll never have that problem again, I hope. What do you think about putting Fly on the first line and Jarvis in the third? I'm going to talk about that more extensively tomorrow night. I wouldn't do it yet, and from what I saw posted today, the practice lines are basically back to their normal configuration, and I'm totally fine with that. As far as flipping those two guys, if you really, really, really need a spark, that's one of the first things you can go to. But first line Martinook, and swapping him and Jarvis last night, it worked out fine. So, or night before last, excuse me. So all that worked out fine. So I'm not worried about that. That is one of your better options, especially if you're on the road and you need more than one goal. But Rod has found a happy medium with tinkering with the lines. A couple of years ago, we know that he could not keep his hands off the blender. And then it got to a point where people are like, okay, why is he not blending the lines now, especially around the time that Ehlers, Stahl, and Martinook line became a thing? I think he finally found a configuration that he was convinced was going to work, and he let it go through the motions and work out its own kinks. And it has worked very well. This team has not dumping the puck in nearly as much as they used to. They are generating more chances off the rush while still doing the volume shooting, while defending, in the playoffs especially, very well. They are scoring in games in situations that they were not doing in the past. This has been Rod's best year as a coach because I think he found what he was really looking for and had enough faith and confidence in it to let it work itself out. Last night, or night before last, was one of those select few situations where he had to make one change, which was ultimately a small but impactful change that got it done. So, a lot of you may have noticed, I was very critical of Rod last season. Very critical, especially in the playoffs. I've never been someone who said a lot of negative stuff about the system, but there's times where I'm kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work. When it comes to the system, I have hardly said a word this season because it is clearly working. I was always worried that the Canes were not going to win enough high-scoring games because of them caring too much about defending, having the man-on-man thing, all that. That's not the case this time around. If they have to score more to win, they've been doing it. If they need to shut another team down for the most part, as far as the playoffs go, they've been doing it. During the regular season, the defense was a little uncharacteristic, but that's going to happen when you don't have Slavin and you have two additional new pieces already on that blue line with Miller and Nikishin, and then you throw in the fact that Slavin is not in there and you're got any combination of Legault, Nystrom, and Riley there. Everything turned out really well. The goaltending looked shaky at times. Bussy came in and absolutely stood on his head for a long time, and I don't think his time in Carolina is done by any means. I think that there's still a great goalie in there that needs an offseason to really acclimate and to learn to play the puck in a much more efficient manner. That would be the biggest thing I would want him to work on in the offseason. But he's definitely a serviceable, at a minimum, 1B. He's got a few things he needs to work on and get a little bit more adjusted. Imagine Bussy after having a full camp. I still think he's going to be good. Frederik Andersen is doing everything he needs to do right now, and Kochetkov is a option should you need him. So everything has gone pretty well, even despite how turbulent this season has felt at times. Because I think more than anything, it's just a lot of us, I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of us, we all know Carolina's best players are getting older. Slavin is 32 now, I think. If he's not 32, he's 31. Aho's 28, I believe. Yeah, you're building a new core. You've got a replacement identified for nearly everybody that would be gone in the next 3 to 5 seasons. That being said, you also have no way of definitively saying if that core would be as good, remotely even, as the one you have now. Every reason to believe that it could be. But that's why I think, me personally, I was getting a little impatient with things because I was afraid of the Hurricanes turning into the Sharks from the 2010s. I don't really feel that way very much now. Everything is going fine. Their toughest test is yet to come. Whoever the ECF team, whether it's Montreal or Buffalo is, should Carolina advance past the series, is going to be the toughest test they've had yet. Playing against Montreal in some ways would be more difficult than Carolina playing against Florida. That's something I'll talk about later. We'll cross that bridge if and when we get there. And then in the Stanley Cup Finals, who knows what you could be potentially waiting on, and who will be healthy and who won't be. There's a lot there. But I have a lot more faith and confidence in this team now than I have in a long time. And the moment where it really turned around for me was when Jarvis fought Gergensons. That's when I was kind of like, all right, these guys got what it takes. Yeah, you didn't get what you wanted out of the trade deadline. Worked out fine. A lot of stuff worked out fine. So we'll see how everything else goes. Well, Park says, I feel like Svech and Ehlers could be so elite. Yeah, see, that's one thing. I just got done saying how I haven't criticized Rod as much this year to going to criticize something. I like the Ehlers, Aho, Svechnikov line. I like the Ehlers, Aho, Svechnikov line when it was together, and I think he broke it up a little bit too early. But part of that also was to put Ehlers with Stahl and Martinook, which worked out really well. So sometimes you have to cannibalize one thing to, create functionality in other places. So, good thing if you ask me. Ultimately, good result. If you have to do that, but it's like the first line, we know it can produce with its normal personnel being Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis. They're just in a really bad rut right now. They've got to get out of it. As long as they're winning games, and as long as what few games they do lose, they're still close, because they're going to lose a game eventually. I know that, everybody wants to sit here and think, 16-0. That's not happening. No way. I will eat this hat live if the Hurricanes go 16-0 in the playoffs, and I will not put any condiments on it whatsoever. Eventually, they're going to lose, but one of the best ways to win is knowing how to lose and how you respond to it and everything like that. As long as the games are close that they lose and they play well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I wouldn't change anything. Yeah, it would be nice to get that top line going, but when things are working right now, yeah, have plans in your back pocket, contingency plans of how you might shuffle the lines up and everything like that, but right now, I wouldn't change anything. Nothing. Yes, could get line one producing. I just don't think the team's in a position where they need to do that necessarily when they're winning. With the cap confirmed at 104 million, where do you predict the Nikishin extension? Assuming KK is gone, I pray for both parties. We have Carolina has roughly 18 million. Nikishin, I think if I had to guess right now, if he doesn't really go off for the rest of the playoffs, 8.5, 9, maybe something along those lines. Since they outlawed the 8-year deals and it's going down to 7s and 7s only, he'll probably get a little bit higher of an AAV than he would have gotten had they had 8-year extensions still been permitted. So I think 8.5, 9, maybe 9.5 on the high end, but worth it, absolutely worth it. Todd says, did you see the Vasilevsky exit interview where he praised Carolina for the work ethic, Vassity Carolina for Kochetkov? I did see that. The one thing... See, the only thing about that is Kochetkov's younger. Now, don't get me wrong, Vasilevsky will be a better goalie on his worst day than Kochetkov will be on his best. And that's not a knock on Kochetkov. It's just Andrei Vasilevsky is who he is. How old is he now? Hold up. Let me look at something here. Let's see his cap hit too. So he signed through 2028, age 33, $9.5 million cap hit. So that wouldn't be a problem. That's the thing about it is that's not a horrible contract for Andrei Vasilevsky at all. And it's also relatively low risk if his game regressed at all. He's 31 now. His UFA year, 2028 at age 33. The only reason that I would not do that is because you're giving up a potential career of Kochetkov for Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, if you had Andrei Vasilevsky and Pyotr Kochetkov, different story. But I don't know, man. That's a tough call for me. Especially considering, like, you'd have to give up a haul to get him. But I don't think he's leaving Tampa. I really don't. Yeah, they've had multiple first-round exits now. But that would be a haul for 2 years of a goalie. A damn good one. Arguably still the best one in the league. But giving up Kochetkov when you're potentially losing Frederik Andersen to retirement. Yeah. Dylan says, does Buffalo scare me more now from what I'm seeing? No. I've watched Montreal and Buffalo both play enough to no. I'm afraid of Montreal for stylistic reasons and how the way that they play is a perfect countermeasure for Carolina. Buffalo's play style is not a perfect countermeasure to Carolina. The only thing about it is Carolina could take so if Carolina takes a 3-goal lead on Buffalo, provided that they play the rest of the game and execute their game the way that we know that they can, Carolina usually wins a game like that. Montreal, on the other hand, laughs at 3-goal leads and makes them evaporate on 9 shots. Completely different, things that I would be worried about there. Jacob Dobish is a very good goalie, and he's only going to get better. Montreal is very good at drafting and developing goalies, historically speaking. So it's not so much which team I think is better on paper. It's which one I think would execute better against Carolina. And that far and away is Montreal, 40 feet of air, and whoever else you want to put in second. So Will Park says, in my opinion, Buffalo is not a good matchup for the Habs. I feel like Carolina matches up much better. Yeah, Buffalo would be a better matchup for Carolina. As far as what would be better for Carolina, but the Habs are kind of a bad matchup for anybody because of how they can score at will. Like, for example, January when I was there, I saw Montreal play in person both times they were in Raleigh, and I was sitting up in the 300s with AB both times, so I got to really, really, really take in those games. And when I saw, so, it's like I'm seeing it. I'm not at the mercy of the camera when I'm at the game, especially when I'm sitting up that high. I can see everything that Montreal does from the moment they get the puck in the defensive zone, even if it's all the way below the goal line, how they exit the zone, how they transition, how good they are at generating clean entries, regardless of the circumstances. whether they have to do a slower one with numbers or if they just, oh wow, my pin just broke. Oh well. Or they have to really just haul off and, go in there with speed, whether it's with 2 guys or 3 guys, whether it's 2-on-2 or, an odd man rush of some sort. Every single time that they transitioned the zone, it seemed like was done with efficiency. They barely had to dump the puck in. Not only when they entered the zone did they do the things that they did, they managed to generate that first shot and continue to generate chances after that. Montreal's a little bit more difficult to get the puck back from. And like I said, I know I've repeated this a million times. We will cross that bridge when we get there. Carolina will have to adjust how they play to beat Montreal, and it's going to sound stupid. You kind of have to give them 1/3 of the ice. You have to let them have their zone exits and try and suffocate them in the neutral zone. Philadelphia, a completely different story. You can forecheck the hell out of them in their own end and get good results. Saw a decent amount of that in game 2, and you saw a ton of it in game 1. So that's the only thing. But when I took all that in, that's where I was kind of like, oh boy, this is a bad matchup for Carolina. Like, for example, the January 1st game, Aho had 5 points, scored 2 goals, had 3 assists, and Carolina still lost. I can't remember a time in history that Sebastian Aho had 5 points and Carolina lost. That might have been the only time it's happened. Will Park says, I was at the first bad Bussy game, my fault. Dylan says, Buffalo is a big team, definitely have the size advantage, though. Not worried about it. Not worried about Buffalo having a size advantage when, let me double check something here. I'm pretty sure Carolina is still maybe not totally faster than them, but fast enough to shut them down in their transition game. Montreal's a much harder team to shut down in transition. I need to transfer all my stuff over to Chrome. It's so much better of a browser nowadays. Let's see. Versus team, Carolina. Carolina has an advantage in overall skating speed. Not by much. Like when you're talking max speed, it's 22.87 to 22.62. At that point, the speed would probably kind of cancel it out. But yeah, Buffalo's big. But I mean, Montreal's a pretty big team too. I mean, Jakai, Matheson, Slavkovsky. Like, yeah, no, Katie, that is true. So I'll pull this one up here. Buffalo's defense is big and tough to play against. That is absolutely true. The thing with Buffalo is that's one of those teams that you're not going to just chip pucks behind and go get it without them making you pay for it. I still think Carolina has enough speed on transition to be able to mitigate that if they continue to generate chances off the rush as much as they have been. That's going to be difficult, especially on the road. That's going to be a hard thing to play against. Both teams scare me. Montreal scares me more for different reasons. It's going to be hard for them to play against, but at the same time though, if Tampa limited Montreal's chances and, scoring as much as they did, Carolina could do a significantly better job. Speaking of Katie, we're going to go back here to one other thing that she said. Can still sign 8-year extensions through September, I believe. Okay, so that's next year that starts. Okay, so yeah, get him an 8 and then get that AAV back down. Ethan Reese says a Dobesh heater plus that top line scares me a hell of a lot more than the Sabres. That's what I'm afraid of more than anything with Montreal. Their top 6, their puck movers on the blue line, and Dobesh. Those things combined would be enough to potentially take Carolina out. So Montreal's had Carolina's number this year. Yeah, and I thoroughly examined that with I've examined the hell out of that because that's the matchup I'm expecting. Blake Stankov and Jarvis look like children. Yeah, and Jarvis has got I'm worried about him. I really am. Ethan says, key appreciation post. I know it's his first full season, but he is for sure playing his best hockey. What an addition. Yeah, and there's some people out there that were saying that I should make a Miller to China meme. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's probably been Carolina's best defenseman in the entirety of the playoffs. And for long stretches in the regular season, too. Yeah, when he makes a mistake, it's bad. When he has a bad game, it's nuclear bad, but those are becoming less and less frequent. Keandre Miller is going to be an important piece of this team for a long, long, long damn time to come. I didn't understand why that trade happened at first, but I am very, very glad that it did. So one other thing, I'll give you a little preview of something I'm going to do tomorrow night because I'm going to get ready to call it a night here, and I'm going to watch Montreal and Buffalo. This is not completely finished. I had a couple more things that I want to add into it, but you guys may recognize this from last year. I'm going to add some more stuff in there in the bottom right-hand corner and all that type of stuff. I'm thinking like I'll put some more special team statistics down there or something. But just for an idea of what the game's been looking like, mostly at 5-on-5. Carolina's been relatively dominant there. They have scored 5 goals and allowed 1 at 5-on-5. Corsi percentage 85 to 67 for 55.92 favoring Carolina. Fenwick 63 to 53 for a 54.31 percentage favoring Carolina. High danger chances, like I said, 19-14 throughout the entirety of the series at 5-on-5, 57.58 favoring Carolina, and 4.2 to 3.49 in expected goals, 54.63 favoring Carolina. So, most difficult game of the series is going to be tomorrow night. If Carolina does not win, so be it. I just want them to go out there and play a good game. Don't let your fundamentals get away from you tomorrow night. Don't get drawn into stupid stuff after the whistle. Go out there, play well. That's all that matters. Winning would be nice, but that's going to be a hard one to win tomorrow night. If Carolina wins tomorrow night, then, they know that that's it for them because they're not going to win 4 in a row, and they sure as hell ain't going to win 2 of them in Lenovo. They know that if they lose tomorrow night, that's the case. They start, Pittsburgh almost mounted a comeback. The retirement home known as the Pittsburgh Penguins retirement home, recovering Blue Jacket Yegor Chinikov, Ben Kendall, who's going to be a nasty player, very good player, and Stuart Skinner, and the guy who is barely good enough to be in the league because he backs up Stuart Skinner. Well, I shouldn't say that. I like Shelovs. They started to mount a pretty good comeback against Philadelphia. I think everyone knows that it's all but curtains if Carolina were to win tomorrow night. Philadelphia is going to pull everything out, and I expect them to win tomorrow night. So for tomorrow, the plan is sometime around 6 or 6:30, I'm thinking we will have Landfall Hour. I'll do the initial part on my own, and then Derek Dunn, who you guys have seen on here a couple of times before, will be joining us. By far my favorite Flyers account, and him and I have become really good buds. He will be on here. We're going to talk about some stuff. And then after the game, I will probably not be doing Damage Report. I will probably do Damage Report on Friday night. Saturday, I'm going to try and get a mega stream together, schedule and guests to follow on that. And then there will be Landfall Hour that day. And then maybe Damage Report after, because like I said, I don't have to be up early on Sunday for the first time this week. So, we'll get to some more of the comments here. Griff says, Miller has been elite. Absolutely. Jonathan says, if Carolina survives the first 10 minutes tomorrow, I think we will be cool for the rest of the game, to be honest. That's a valid observation. Because Philadelphia, to make that game interesting yesterday, had to score twice in 39 seconds, and that happened within the first 5 minutes of the game. They know that they need to start like that just to not fizzle out at the beginning. If Carolina gets on their horse from the get-go, then maybe I just don't want to see another start like that, but Philadelphia had the start that I expected them to have in Game 2, considering they made significant changes and they knew what was on the line. Robert B76, what's up, buddy? They pulled everything out last game and still lost. Yeah, that is true. That, like I was saying earlier, that was their best punch. They threw their best punch that they can in Raleigh. But they're going to throw that punch again at home when they have last change tomorrow, and that's going to be interesting. Griff says, Canes win 4-1 tomorrow. I hope you are right, my friend. I don't think you are. I hope you're right. Lubeck says, Montreal going to score a couple more soon. That team is scary. Yeah, that's what I'm saying about them. They can just score at will. Like, they laugh at 3-goal leads. They really do. Like, but hell, I've gotten to where I talk about Montreal almost as much as talk about the damn Hurricanes. Well, but I mean, I call it like I see it. If I think a team is scary, I'm gonna tell you if I think they're scary. All right, everybody, this has been a very, very fun little stream we've done here. There will be more tomorrow. I will be adding some more stats to the slides and everything as the playoffs go on. And I actually had some time this evening to make some new ones and everything like that. Oh, we got another one. Slump says, I'm scared if this series goes long enough for Owen Tippett to come back. He is elite. Owen Tippett is amazing. Owen Tippett has one fault in his game, and I didn't notice this until Derek pointed it out to me. He can't stop. When he generates a ton of speed, he cannot hit the brakes. He can't snowplow. That's about the only thing he just straight up cannot do. The rest of his game, very good. Ethan says, hard to put into words, but this team just has different vibe this year. I agree. They give off this been there, done that bravado that I haven't seen before. It always felt like there was a bit of a trepidation in the years past, but it feels like this team has seen it all. Yeah, they're definitely weathered. They're definitely weathered, and that's helping them. Griff says, good show, buddy. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. He's very noticeable this year against the Canes. Tippett practiced today. Expect him tomorrow. Yeah, they know what's on the line. Even if Tippett's not 100%, nobody's 100% this time of year. Hell, I don't think anybody's ever 100% ever doing what these guys do for a living. I'm expecting to see him tomorrow. Todd says, super hot take, Miller will be better than Slavin. If you're accounting for all parts of the game, yes. Strictly on the defensive side of things, no. Tippett game time decision tomorrow? Okay. All right, well, we will see. That's part of the reason that even after the mega stream, I'm gonna do Landfall Hour on Saturday, because I'm expecting there to be some changes of some sort. I'm sure. I mean, it's like they already recalled Jet Luchenko. Noah Cates is done for the series, and if Tippett comes back, Jet Luchenko lives up to his name. He's fast. So, but I'm gonna let Derek talk to you guys a lot more about Jet Luchenko because he knows a lot more about him than I do. All right, everybody. I will see you next time. Good night.